After the Blues fell to the Colorado Avalanche, there is one question that has been stemming my mind, and that is, will head coach of the St. Louis Blues, Craig Berube, keep his job? I don't know about this one, and we're going to dive into this here on Locked On Blues.
You're Locked On Blues, your daily podcast on the St. Louis Blues. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome back to Locked On Blues. I am your host of Locked On Blues, Haley Taylor Simon, here a part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where I talk to you about the St. Louis Blues every single day. Some days it's better than other days in a sense of there's more positivity. But today I'm going to ride that negativity train because right now I am not liking what I am seeing out of the Blues. The Blues fell to the Avalanche last night 4-1, and I do have something that made the game worth watching. Will Chiefs stay? That is right. Will our Chief, Craig Berube, who was the Blues' head coach, stay with the Blues for this entirety of the season, or do you think he's going to go away? And then, of course, Jordan Binnington does deserve better, but this has been a conversation I have been saying time and time again, and at this point, what can actually be done for Binner in net? I want to let you know that today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers can get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 moneyline bet. That's $150 if your team wins. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. So last night was an ugly game for the St. Louis Blues, and I have to tell you, I knew all along that this was not going to be a successful game for St. Louis. The Colorado Avalanche, in my opinion, are a cup contending team and one of the best teams in the league when it comes to their blue line, when it comes to their forwards, and even their goaltending. This is a very well-rounded team, and I have to say that the Avalanche, if you looked at how they played last night, they truly didn't play their best game, but against a struggling St. Louis team, it is evident that even the Avalanche's mediocre games, and I'm saying that lightly because they are a good team, still overpowered anything that St. Louis would have done. I am not disappointed in the sense that they lost to the Avalanche, but I am disappointed in the direction where the Blues are heading yet again. I think it's fair to say that the expectations of St. Louis heading into this season weren't so great. I think as a fan base, you knew that this team probably wasn't going to make it to the playoffs. This team would probably still struggle, but we had that sense of hope that the Blues would bounce back just a little bit. And last night told a completely different story where the Blues, I have to say, they did put up somewhat of a fight, but there were so many things in this game that went wrong that is unacceptable. And yes, the outcome of every single hockey game the Blues play is for them to win, to accumulate as many points as possible, even go to overtime. I will take the singular point, but I think it's some of the sloppiness that was executed on ice, especially last night with our captain, Brayden Schenn, having a turnover that led to the Avalanche getting their fourth goal of the game. You had Jordan Kyrou, who honestly just looked sloppy on the ice. And I don't like saying things like this because at the end of the day, I know that this is a long season, but my observations from last night just proved to me that some of the guys on the team that you expected the most out of weren't performing well, and they were making mistakes that led to goals being scored against them. And it's just been a very disappointing season so far. But I'm going to get into the game because that's what we do here on Locked On Blues. The first period, I'm not surprised. After 20 minutes of play, the Avs were up 2-0 against St. Louis. And something that I want to mention is that the second goal the Avalanche got came from being on a power play. And this is something where the Blues, they really need to be careful about not giving other teams power plays. You had in the first period a Jordan Kyrou tripping, and then you had a St. Louis Blues delay of game, which was served by Sammy Blais. But overall, I think that the Blues really need to work on not making some of these mistakes. And yes, it's inevitable. things are going to happen. You're going to get sent to the penalty box. But a team like Colorado having that one-man advantage when they're one of the best teams in the National Hockey League on the power play does, it calls for some unsuccessful, unfortunate events that happen on the ice. Luckily, in the second period, a glimmer of hope was made by our boy Robert Thomas as he got his first regulation goal this season. For those that don't know, Robert Thomas has been probably the most dominant player on the Blues this season thus far. And the last time he got a goal, it was in an OT shootout against the Kraken. So it didn't count as like a regulation goal, so he didn't get the full 2 points. But now he has that. So I was happy for Archie getting his first regulation goal of the season. And that was assisted by Kapanen and Nick Leddy, which is a shock to me. I know Nick Leddy, I was very surprised about that play, but it ended up working out. So now that the Blues cut the Colorado Avalanche's lead in half, it was now 2-1 Avs after 40 minutes of play. One would think, hey, this would kind of fuel up the Blues a little bit. They're still alive. But that was not the story whatsoever. And unfortunately, when it comes to St. Louis, nothing good will ever happen once they make a solid play, and it just went downhill. I personally think that, when another team gets a goal within the first couple minutes of a period, that definitely is something that takes that momentum away from a team that's trying to come back. And that's exactly what happened as Colorado was able to get their third goal of the game less than 2 minutes into that third period. So earlier I did mention that an awful turnover by Braden Shen led to the Avalanche getting their fourth goal of the game. And about 8 minutes in, that's what happened. And the Avs were up 4-1 and no other goals were scored since. Now, what if I told you something? That the Blues did better in faceoffs against the Avalanche. I know that sounds a little crazy, a little out there, but that's exactly what happened. And the Blues, besides that third period going downhill, and I know the awful first period, but after the 40 minutes where, Robert Thomas was able to cut that lead 2-1, you were still alive, they matched up pretty well against the Avalanche. The Blues and the Avs both had 28 shots on net. And with hits, the Blues had 13 while the Avs had 14. The Blues actually served less penalty minutes than the Colorado Avalanche. So where did things go wrong? And I can tell you where things went wrong. It was the absolute sloppiness that the Blues presented during the game. The spacing was off. Everything was off. And this is why I think that Blues fans, myself included, are frustrated with how this team is doing. Because at the end of the day, they were in it, right? They had, sure, some bad plays, bad mistakes, but they were in it. And now, I know I've talked about this a lot, and I know I said that Robert Thomas was our main man, but he is leading the points. I kid you not. He's leading the team in points with 6, goals in 2, and assists by 4. It's unbelievable to me that Robert Thomas, and I love Robert Thomas, and this is nothing against him personally, with only accumulating 6 points, he is the team leader in every single category. That is something to be concerned about. That is something that I wouldn't take lightly. And obviously, it's hard to diss on a player that is doing, I guess, the best in a way. But at the same time, that is only 6 points. And that's not something that anyone should be thrilled about. But hey, I guess that's just the nature of the game. Another thing about last night that I will take as a positive was Darren Pang they call it the suicide box. I'm not trying to make anybody uncomfortable. That's what they call it. It's the glass box between both of the team's benches. And he was there last night with the TNT broadcast. And it was funny. He was interviewing Berube. And, Berube said, thanks, Panger. And it's one of those things where I miss him so much, hearing his voice, talking all things St. Louis, calling our games. And it was actually very refreshing to have him back last night. And I think I can speak for all of St. Louis when I say that losing him was one of the worst things that happened this offseason. But I hate to say it is what it is, but it is what it is, and that's what made last night extra special. Despite how the Blues played, was hearing that familiar voice that we all know and love here in St. Louis. So that was my one positive of the game. Before I talk about something about Coach Berube that I've been wanting to hold off on, but I felt like it was finally time to address, I'm going to talk to you about Sleeper. A new NHL season brings all sorts of possibilities. Robert Thomas could score 50 goals. That's only 48 more than he has now. And the Blues, they could host the Stanley Cup, maybe. And you could win big by playing daily fantasy hockey on Sleeper, the official daily fantasy app of the Locked On NHL Network. Sleeper is our number one choice for daily fantasy sports and especially daily fantasy hockey. Because with Sleeper, you can win 100 times your cash with daily fantasy hockey contests. And this is the thing. I know the Blues season isn't the best, but you can always count on Jordan Binnington for maybe getting a decent save percentage. I mean, there are so many possibilities of Sleeper that you can use to win some money, okay? And I also want to let you know that you can also play daily fantasy NFL, NBA, MLB, and college football on Sleeper, which is something that I take advantage of because I love my daily fantasy football, okay? All you have to do is pick guys like a Robert Thomas, a Pavel. No, actually, I wouldn't do Buchnevich. Maybe I would just stick with Robert Thomas to record some goals, assists. You never know. So if you want to win a $100 bet on Sleeper, you need to correctly predict the outcome of 8 player stats. You heard me, Blues fans. You can win 100 times your money playing daily fantasy hockey with Sleeper. So start paying attention and nail in your picks so you can start winning big. Use promo code LOCKEDONNHL and you will get up to $100 match on your first deposit. Terms and conditions apply. That's code LOCKEDONNHL. See Sleeper's terms of use for details and locational availability. Cool. Cool. You know what's not cool? Craig Berube right now with me. And why is that? I personally don't know how long Chief will last here in St. Louis. I have defended him and I respect him, not only as when he was a player, not only with what he did with, getting us the cup, but I think it's one of those things where the Blues are treading in a direction that is scary and that concerns me greatly. The players, for whatever reason, are not responding to him. And listen, I don't know what goes on in the locker room behind closed doors. I don't know what the dynamic is like, but I can tell you this, that right now, there is no response on ice. There is no hunger. And it seems to me that you can see his frustration on the bench, right? But how long will that last before a Doug Armstrong says, okay, this is not working out. The Blues are not winning. These lineup changes, even though I know they're coming from a good place, they're not showing success on ice. And I think this is a thing that Blues fans really need to take into consideration about the future of the St. Louis Blues team. Last night, Craig Berube, I'm going to read you a quote that he said after the loss to Colorado. We made 2 bad puck decisions in the third that cost us the game. That's basically what it boils down to. We're right in the game. We shot ourselves in the foot in the third. Now, when he said we're right in the game, that kind of took me a little bit surprised. Now, I did say that after the second they were, but I don't think they were right in the game. I think that they were definitely alive. And I feel like that quote to me, it's not, we'll hold these players accountable, we'll work on this. It was more just stating a fact. And I think that reading that today, I watch all the pressers usually in the next day because I'm so tired. But I just felt like there was a disconnect. It felt very bland, like there was no real, we haven't been playing well. They should have won this game. We're going to work on this, blah, blah. It was more just facts, right? I do worry about his longevity here with the Blues. And I said it. I truly think before Christmas he will be gone. And I hate that And this is not what I wanted to say. This was not an opinion that I wanted to have. I was kind of suppressing that away because I thought to myself, this guy, Coach Berube, he means so much to me because getting that cup was one of the best moments of my life. And that team was so special, but that's not the same team anymore. While there are some of the same players, it does not mean that those players make up that entire roster that really made magic happen. Sometimes in life, and especially hockey, you want to hold on to the things that were good. That's why maybe you keep players a little bit longer than you should, or you keep certain, coaches, assistant coaches, things like that. I know they got rid of a couple assistant coaches in this offseason. The end of last season, but this offseason. But it's still one of those things where this team needs to change. And you can't dwell on, like about 5 years ago, they won the cup with him. It's okay. That happened. That was a great moment in history. I think there's always going to be an enormous level of respect for Coach Berube. But at the end of the day, is this what's best for the Blues now? Last season, it was an issue. I even felt the players weren't responding to him last season. And now this is even worse than it was last season. I feel like there is just the slowness on ice. There's a lack of passion, a lack of effort and energy. And I do have to tell you that sometimes having a new coach, it stems up new energy in the locker room. It stems up new playmaking decisions. And I think that right now that's what the Blues need. I don't necessarily have a guy that's coming to my mind to be the new coach of the Blues. And that's an episode I will dive into where I will talk about maybe coaches that will be the best fit. But this is the first time I think I'm having this conversation of, okay, maybe the Blues need to move on from Chief. And it sucks. And I'm not happy about it. But I think it's unjust to let this team sink as much as they are for the remainder of the season. And I'm going to get into the next slate of games and why I feel like this could really put the mark on Berube no longer being with the Blues. And of course, I'm going to talk about Binnington because he does deserve better yet again. It's something that I've said a lot, but what does better mean? How can the Blues help Binnington? And it sucks. I'm going to be honest. It sucks. I hate it. I'm not a fan of it, but I cannot fathom to see this team stay at 7 points. Okay? It is bad. 7th in the Central, it's not good. It's really not good. It's getting worse and worse, to be honest, and it's not getting any better. All right. I want to tell you about Indeed. Indeed is the hiring platform where you can attract, interview, and hire all in one place. Don't spend hours on multiple job sites looking for candidates with all the right skills. Find top talent fast with Indeed's suite of powerful hiring tools like Indeed Instant Match assessments and virtual interviews. Hate waiting. Indeed's U.S. data shows over 80% of Indeed employers find quality candidates whose resumes on Indeed matches their job description the moment they sponsor a job. Something that I like about Indeed is that it makes hiring all in one place so easy because you put the application in, you find great matches, and it's like an instant matchmaking. Sometimes I feel like hiring is like dating in a way where you do have to find that match that aligns best with you and your company's needs, which is why I am a big fan of Indeed. So join over 3 million businesses worldwide using your Indeed to hire great talent fast. Indeed knows what you're growing your own business, and you have to make every dollar count. That's why with Indeed, you only pay for quality applications to match your must-have job requirements. Indeed knows that finding people with the right skills makes all the difference when you're hiring a team of one. Indeed knows hiring needs to be cost-effective, of course, when you're running your own business. Indeed knows that you're doing everything for your company and you cannot afford to overspend on hiring. So this is what you need to do. You need to visit Indeed.com/lockedon to start hiring now. Just go to Indeed.com/lockedon, Indeed.com/lockedon. Terms and conditions apply. Cost per application pricing is not available for everyone. Need a hire. You need Indeed. Indeed, you do. I just wanted to say that. I really wanted to be the one to say that. All right. So in this last segment, by the way, I just want to let you know that this last segment is brought to you by FanDuel. And again, go to FanDuel.com/LockedOnNHL. I'm going to talk about Binner deserves better again and kind of the next slate of games and my thoughts on that. It's going to suck. Let's be honest. But Jordan Binnington is in such an uncomfortable position, not just with the outcomes of the games, but the fact that the defense is non-existent. I put out a tweet last night on the Locked On Blues Twitter account, which is at Locked On Blues. And I said, defense, where are you at? Because I seriously, for the life of me, could not find a single defender that was in their position, doing their job, protecting the net. It was atrocious. It was ugly. Okay. So what did the Blues do about protecting Jordan Binnington so he's not always struggling because of the lack of defense? Well, this would be a really great time to call up some of the guys on the Thunderbirds. This would also be a good time, as I mentioned, time and time again, let's talk to some defenders about trying to move them to different teams. Despite them having a no-trade clause, it is still allowed to have a conversation because maybe they don't want to be here in St. Louis, and maybe, just call me crazy, maybe that would be for the best, okay? But no, Jordan Binnington deserves better, and I'm going to stand by that statement forever because I feel awful for Binner. It is not his fault. He's probably the best player on the Blues, without a doubt in my mind. Like, I really cannot fathom the fact that he's been in this position where he has just been struggling in net, and it's not like struggling in net. He's been doing good in net, okay? But of course you're going to struggle when you don't have any support defensively. So I want to put that out there because I will not have any Jordan Binnington slander. Now, speaking of, see, it's funny. I look at the schedule, and I'm going to talk to you up until Thursday, November 16th, because this next slate of games, yeah, it's going to suck. Like, it's going to suck. Tomorrow night, they play the New Jersey Devils at home. The Devils are a good team, so let's pretend that we're doing wins and losses. I don't think they're going to defeat the Devils. Then on Saturday, they host the Montreal Canadiens. Let's be honest, the Canadiens are not the best team, so the Blues, they could win. Then on Tuesday, November 7th, they host the Winnipeg Jets. They're going to lose. I think the Jets are actually a much better team than people give them credit for. Thursday, November 9th, they host the Arizona Coyotes. I know I overlooked the Coyotes before, and I'm going to talk, obviously, more in depth about all of these teams. I think that this is going to be a tough one. I really do. On Saturday, November 11th, so next Saturday, they're going to be at Colorado yet again. Kind of weird with the scheduling, to be honest. They were at Colorado twice like that before they were hosting them, but I don't make the schedule. They're going to lose to that. Then they host Tampa Bay. Let's be honest, and that's going to be on Tuesday, November 14th. They're going to lose to that. And then finally, on November 16th, they're going to be at San Jose. The Sharks have yet to win a game, but knowing how the Blues are, there's a very good chance that they could lose the game. Now, why am I telling you this? Why am I doing, the next couple games, the next handful of games? What's the point? The point is this. If I told you in the beginning of the season, I know it's like the beginning of the season, but if I told you in, let's say, September when I was previewing the season that the Blues would play these teams, I think that most of us, I know especially myself, I would be like, oh yeah, the Blues could definitely win these games. They're not going to be a challenge. I would never question it. But now with how St. Louis is playing, none of these games seem, besides the Sharks, but again, I can't jinx that, so knock on wall. It's actually very deceiving. This other wall is kind of far away from me, but it looks closer, so knock on that too. But the Blues, they're one of the worst teams in the NHL, and I think that a month in now to the season, I went from being confident about the team to being completely a wreck about this team. So it's interesting when you hear teams' names against that the Blues will be playing against, it really went from, oh yeah, this could be a win, this is definitely going to be a good game for the Blues, to now being, I hope they win at least 2 of these games. So maybe some magic at Enterprise will happen. I am not overly confident about that. All right, before I end today's episode, I do want to let you know that you can follow me on Twitter at Haley T. Simon or at Locked On Blues. And I still love the Blues. I love the Blue Note. Right now, it's just frustrating. And I just want to reiterate that no matter how the Blues play this season, do not give up on this team, because you never know in hockey. You never know in sports. And I'm trying to create some hope. So just let me be a little bit delusional and create some of that hope. All right. I'm going to end today's episode how I usually do. My everydayers, let me know how you feel about what I've talked about with Berube down below in the comments on YouTube. And I will talk to you for our Refeeling Blue Friday tomorrow, which I kind of think I know. Well, I'm going to know the outcome of that one. All right. I'll talk to you tomorrow. And like always, let's go Blues.